Welcome back, Rare Coin Insider. Imagine holding a small, ordinary-looking coin in your hand, something so common that most people wouldn't even give it a second glance. Yet hidden within that simple piece of metal could be a story stretching across centuries, a design rooted in national identity, and in rare circumstances. A value so astonishing that it transforms from pocket change into a collector's dream worth unimaginable sums. And today we dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1 cent USA 1991 coin, a coin that at first glance seems completely ordinary but carries layers of historical significance, intricate design elements, and the potential, under very specific conditions, to become incredibly valuable in the collector's market. The 1991 1-cent coin, commonly known as the penny, is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, a design that has been in circulation since 1909, making it one of the most enduring coin designs in United States history, and this alone already gives the coin a deep historical backbone because it connects generations through a consistent visual identity. And when you look at the front of the coin, what you are seeing is the profile of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, a figure associated with unity, resilience, and the abolition of slavery, and his presence on the coin was revolutionary when first introduced because it marked the first time a real historical figure appeared on a regularly circulating U.S. coin. Now focusing specifically on the 1991 issue, the obverse side, the front, features the familiar right-facing portrait of Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials, VDB, can be found subtly placed on the coin, and above Lincoln's head, you'll see the word Liberty, while the year 1991 is stamped clearly to the right, and just above that year, depending on where the coin was minted, you might notice a small letter, either D for Denver or no mark for Philadelphia, and this tiny detail plays a crucial role in determining the coin's rarity and value, because mint marks can significantly influence how collectors perceive a coin. Turning the coin over to the reverse side, you encounter the classic wheatless design that had been replaced decades earlier, as by 1991 the reverse featured the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959 to commemorate Lincoln's 150th birthday, and this design is incredibly detailed for such a small coin, showing the iconic structure in Washington, D.C., and if you look closely enough, even with the naked eye in some cases, you can actually see a tiny representation of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, making this coin unique because it technically depicts Lincoln on both sides, something rarely seen in coinage, and surrounding the memorial are the inscriptions, United States of America, 1 cent, and the motto, E pluribus unum, which translates to, out of many one, reinforcing the idea of unity among states. In terms of physical characteristics, the 1991 penny weighs approximately 2.5 grams, which is lighter than older pennies minted before 1982, and this is because of a significant change in composition when the U.S. Mint shifted from primarily copper coins to a zinc core with a thin copper plating, and this transition was driven by rising copper prices, making it economically impractical to continue producing coins with high copper content. So while the coin still appears copper-colored, its internal structure tells a different story, and this composition detail becomes especially important when collectors examine coins for authenticity or potential mint errors. Speaking of errors, this is where things start to become truly interesting and where the possibility of extreme value begins to emerge, because while millions upon millions of 1991 pennies were produced, making them very common in general circulation, certain rare variations, minting errors, or exceptional conditions can elevate a simple penny into something extraordinarily valuable, and collectors are always on the lookout for anomalies such as double dies, off-center strikes, or transitional errors where the wrong metal composition might have been used, and these rare occurrences can turn an otherwise ordinary coin into a highly sought-after collectible. Now when people hear claims of a 1991 penny being worth something like $159 million, it's important to approach that figure with a critical mindset, because while coins have sold for millions at auctions, especially extremely rare ones, like the 1943 copper penny or the 1794 flowing hair dollar, the idea of a standard 1991 penny reaching such a value would require an incredibly unique set of circumstances, such as a previously unknown minting error, historical significance, or a one-of-a-kind anomaly that captures the attention of elite collectors worldwide. So while the vast majority of 1991 pennies are worth only their face value or slightly more in uncirculated condition, the legend of high-value coins persists because of the rare but real examples where small details have led to massive payouts. Collectors often grade coins based on condition, using a scale that ranges from heavily circulated to mint state, and a 1991 penny in pristine, uncirculated condition with a strong strike, original luster, and no visible wear can command a higher price than one that has been worn down over years of use. And grading services like PCGS or NGC play a major role in authenticating and assigning value to coins, making them more attractive to serious buyers, and even subtle differences in grading can lead to significant changes in market value. Another factor that contributes to the coin's appeal is the emotional and psychological aspect of collecting, because coins like the 1991 penny are accessible to almost everyone, creating a sense of possibility that anyone could stumble upon something valuable in their spare change. And this idea fuels the excitement behind coin hunting, where people carefully examine their coins under magnification, searching for tiny details that could indicate rarity. And it's this blend of history, chance, and discovery that keeps the hobby alive and thriving across generations. As we go deeper into the world of the 1991 1-cent coin, we begin to uncover more nuanced aspects such as production numbers, differences between mint facilities, and the subtle characteristics that distinguish an ordinary coin from a potentially valuable one, and these details are what separate casual observers from serious collectors, because understanding the story behind the coin is just as important as the coin itself, and every scratch, every marking, and every variation can tell a part of that story, turning a simple object into a piece of history waiting to be explored. As we continue exploring the 1991 1-cent coin, it becomes clear that understanding its true significance requires diving deeper into the numbers behind its production, because mintage figures play a huge role in determining how rare or common a coin actually is. And in 1991 the United States Mint produced billions of pennies across its facilities, with the Philadelphia Mint striking over 4 billion coins, and the Denver Mint contributing several billion more, which immediately tells us that, in general terms, this coin is not rare in the traditional sense, and this is where many people make a critical mistake by assuming age alone creates value, when in reality, rarity combined with demand is what truly drives the price upward in the collector's market. However, even within such massive production numbers, there are always exceptions, and these exceptions are what collectors obsess over, because not every coin that leaves the mint is identical, despite the intention for uniformity, and slight variations in the minting process can lead to differences that are nearly invisible to the untrained eye, but incredibly important to someone who knows what to look for. For example, die cracks, repunched mint marks, or slight doubling in the lettering can all signal that a coin might be part of a limited and highly collectible subset, and these imperfections, rather than reducing value, can dramatically increase it because they represent a break from the norm. One of the most fascinating aspects of coin collecting is the concept of mint errors, and the 1991 penny is no exception to this phenomenon, because errors can occur at multiple stages during production, whether it's during the preparation of the blank planchet, the engraving of the dies, or the actual striking of the coin, and each type of error creates a different kind of collectible, such as an off-center strike where the design is not properly aligned, or a broad strike where the coin expands beyond its intended diameter due to a missing retaining collar, and even more intriguing are double die errors, where the design appears slightly duplicated due to a misalignment during the die creation process, and these are among the most sought-after varieties in the coin world. Another layer of complexity comes from the condition of the coin, because even though billions were minted, very few remain in perfect condition decades later, and this is where the concept of mint state becomes incredibly important, as coins that have never entered circulation and retain their original shine and sharp details are significantly rarer than their circulated counterparts, and within mint state grading, there are multiple levels, with the highest grades being extremely difficult to achieve, and a 1991 penny graded at the very top of the scale could be worth far more than an average example, especially if it also possesses attractive toning or exceptional eye appeal. The idea of a coin being worth millions, such as the claim of a $159 million value, often comes from a mix of myth, speculation, and rare precedents in the coin market, because while it is true that certain coins have sold for astonishing amounts, those coins typically have unique historical importance or extreme rarity, and for a 1991 penny to reach such a value, it would likely need to be a one-of-a-kind mint error or possess a story that elevates it beyond all others, such as being struck on an experimental planchet or having a documented connection to a significant event, and without such extraordinary factors, the realistic market value of most 1991 pennies remains modest. Still, the collector's market thrives on possibilities, and even a small chance of discovering something rare is enough to keep people searching, and this is why coin roll hunting has become so popular, where individuals obtain rolls of coins from banks and carefully inspect each one in hopes of finding a hidden gem, and the 1991 penny often appears in these searches because it is still relatively common in circulation, making it accessible for beginners while still offering the potential for discovery, and this balance between accessibility and mystery is what makes it so appealing. Another interesting point to consider is how external factors can influence a coin's value over time, because the market is not static, and prices can fluctuate based on collector interest, economic conditions, and even trends within the hobby. And for example, if a new variety of the 1991 penny were to be discovered and widely recognized, it could suddenly increase demand for that specific type, leading to higher prices, and this dynamic nature of the market means that today's ordinary coin could become tomorrow's sought-after collectible under the right circumstances. In addition to errors and condition, there are also subtle design characteristics that collectors pay attention to, such as the sharpness of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, the clarity of the lettering, and the overall strike quality, because even within standard coins, some are struck more cleanly than others, and these differences can affect desirability. And experienced collectors often develop an eye for spotting high-quality examples quickly, allowing them to identify coins that others might overlook. It's also worth mentioning the role of preservation, because how a coin is stored can significantly impact its long-term condition and value, and coins that are kept in protective holders, away from moisture and air exposure, are far more likely to retain their original appearance, while those left loose or handled frequently can develop scratches, discoloration, or corrosion, all of which reduce their appeal. And this is why serious collectors invest in proper storage solutions, treating their coins almost like delicate artifacts rather than everyday objects. As we continue unraveling the story of the 1991 1-cent coin, it becomes evident that its true value is not just measured in dollars, but in the layers of history, craftsmanship, and human curiosity that it represents, because even though most examples may never reach extraordinary prices, the knowledge that a rare and valuable version could exist adds an element of excitement that transforms the act of examining a simple coin into a journey of discovery, and this is what keeps collectors engaged, always searching, always learning, and always hoping that the next coin they pick up might be something truly special. As the journey into the 1991 1-cent coin continues, the deeper reality of its so-called $1,000,000 status begins to unfold, and this is where it becomes important to separate hype from genuine numismatic truth. Because while stories of extremely valuable pennies capture attention and drive curiosity, the real market operates on well-documented principles. And collectors who succeed in this field are the ones who rely on knowledge, patience, and attention to detail rather than assumptions. And when it comes to the 1991 penny, its true potential lies not in its common form, but in the rare outliers that defy expectations. One of the most overlooked yet critical aspects is the possibility of transitional or wrong planchet errors, because even though by 1991 pennies were supposed to be struck on zinc cores with copper plating, there is always a slim chance that a leftover blank from an earlier composition or an experimental piece could have been used accidentally. And such an event would instantly elevate the coin into an elite category, because collectors place enormous value on mistakes that were never meant to happen. And if a 1991 penny were ever discovered struck on a completely different metal composition, especially one tied to a historical transition, it could trigger massive interest from auction houses and private collectors alike. Another angle that adds intrigue is the microscopic level of detail that modern collectors examine, because with today's technology, coins are studied under high magnification, revealing features that were once impossible to detect, and this includes die polishing lines, minute doubling in inscriptions, and even the texture of the coin surface, all of which can provide clues about how the coin was made and whether it belongs to a specific die variety. And for a 1991 penny, identifying a previously undocumented die variety could be the key to unlocking unexpected value, especially if only a small number of such coins are found. There is also the concept of population reports, which are maintained by major grading companies and show how many coins of a particular type have been graded at each level. And this data is incredibly valuable because it gives collectors a sense of how rare a high-grade example truly is. And for a coin like the 1991 penny, while lower-grade examples are abundant, the number of coins graded at the absolute highest levels is much smaller, and this scarcity at the top end creates a competitive environment where collectors are willing to pay significantly more to own one of the finest known examples, especially if it is tied for the highest grade ever recorded. Beyond the technical side, there is also a psychological and cultural layer to coin collecting that cannot be ignored, because coins like the 1991 penny are part of everyday life, and this familiarity creates a powerful contrast when one is suddenly revealed to be valuable, and this contrast fuels viral stories, online discussions, and even misinformation, as people become fascinated by the idea that something so ordinary could be worth a fortune. And while most of these stories are exaggerated, they serve an important role in bringing new people into the hobby, encouraging them to look more closely at the objects they might otherwise ignore. In reality, the typical market value of a 1991 penny ranges from just 1 cent in circulated condition to a few cents or slightly more for uncirculated examples, and perhaps a higher premium for coins with exceptional quality or minor errors. But reaching values anywhere near millions would require a discovery so unique that it changes the understanding of that year's production entirely. And while this may seem unlikely, the history of coin collecting has shown that unexpected discoveries do happen, sometimes decades after a coin was first minted, which is why the search never truly ends. Another fascinating dimension is how coins are sold and valued in the modern era, because auctions, online marketplaces, and private sales all play a role in determining what a coin is worth at any given time, and high-profile auctions can sometimes drive prices to extraordinary levels due to competition between wealthy collectors, especially when a coin is perceived as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And if a truly unique 1991 penny were to surface and gain widespread attention, it could potentially spark such a bidding war, pushing its value far beyond typical expectations. The role of storytelling also plays a surprisingly large part in a coin's value, because collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying history, mystery, and sometimes even a legend, and a coin with a compelling backstory, such as being discovered in an unusual place, linked to a historical figure, or identified as a previously unknown error, can capture the imagination of buyers in a way that drives up its price. And for the 1991 penny, any such narrative would need to be backed by solid evidence and expert verification, but if it were, it could transform the coin from a common item into a headline-worthy treasure. At the same time, it is important to approach claims of extreme value with a level of skepticism, because the internet is filled with exaggerated or misleading information about coin prices, often designed to attract attention rather than provide accurate guidance, and serious collectors know that verification, certification, and market comparison are essential steps before assigning a high value to any coin. And this disciplined approach helps prevent costly mistakes and ensures that the market remains grounded in reality. As this exploration reaches deeper levels, the 1991 1-cent coin reveals itself as more than just a piece of currency. It becomes a gateway into a world where history, art, economics, and human curiosity intersect, and whether it is worth 1 cent or something far greater depends entirely on the details hidden within it. And this is what makes coin collecting so endlessly fascinating, because every coin carries the possibility, however small, of being something extraordinary, waiting quietly to be discovered by someone willing to look just a little closer. And as this story reaches its final stretch, what truly defines the 1991 1-cent coin is not just its metal, its design, or even its market value, but the idea it represents, because this tiny coin becomes a symbol of how something overlooked can carry layers of meaning far beyond its appearance. And in a world where value is often judged instantly, coins like this remind us that real worth is often hidden in the smallest details, waiting for the right eye to notice it. By now, it is clear that the standard 1991 penny, produced in massive quantities and used in everyday transactions, is not rare in the traditional sense, and most examples will never rise beyond a modest value. Yet the magic lies in the exceptions, in the rare mint errors, the perfect uncirculated specimens, and the hypothetical discoveries that keep collectors searching with excitement and hope. Because even if the chance is incredibly small, the possibility itself is powerful enough to turn an ordinary coin into an object of fascination. The idea of a $159 million value may sound unbelievable, and in practical terms, such a price would only ever be attached to a coin that breaks every known rule of rarity, uniqueness, and historical importance, something that would redefine the entire category. And while no verified 1991 penny has reached anything close to that figure, the existence of multi-million-dollar coins in history keeps the dream alive, reminding collectors that the unexpected has happened before and could, in theory, happen again under extraordinary circumstances. What makes the 1991 penny especially interesting is its position in modern coinage, because it sits at a point where coins were still widely used in daily life, yet advanced enough in production that errors became less common, making any mistake more noticeable and valuable, and this balance between commonality and the slim chance of rarity creates a unique appeal, drawing both beginners and experienced collectors into the same search, each hoping to find something others have missed. There is also a deeper connection that forms between the collector and the coin, because over time, the act of searching, examining, and learning transforms a simple hobby into something more personal, and every coin, including the 1991 penny, becomes part of a larger journey, a collection not just of objects, but of moments, discoveries, and stories. And this emotional layer is something that cannot be measured in dollars, but is often what keeps people engaged for a lifetime. In the end, the true value of the 1991 1-cent coin depends entirely on perspective, because to most people, it is just a penny, something to spend or ignore, but to a collector, It is a piece of history, a potential rarity, and a challenge waiting to be solved, and this difference in perception is what creates the entire world of coin collecting, where knowledge turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. So the next time you come across a 1991 penny, instead of dismissing it, take a moment to really look at it. Notice the details of Lincoln's portrait, the structure of the memorial, the shine or wear on its surface, and consider the journey it has taken from the mint to your hand, because hidden within that small piece of metal is a story that spans decades, and while it may not make you a millionaire, it connects you to a tradition of curiosity and discovery that has fascinated people for generations. And perhaps that is the most valuable lesson of all, that sometimes the greatest treasures are not the ones that are immediately obvious, but the ones that require patience, knowledge, and a willingness to look closer, because in that search, whether you find a rare coin or not, you gain something far more lasting, the ability to see value where others see none, and that, in itself, is worth more than any price tag ever could be.